Massachusetts voters making a choice on the direction of the Democratic Party. Senator Ed Markey.
We are living in a critical moment, and we must fight back.
Challenged by Congressman Seth Moulton.
The old playbook is just not getting it done for Democrats.
To represent Massachusetts in the United States Senate. Today, for the first time, coming face to face on the 22 News debate stage. From your local election headquarters, this is the Massachusetts Democratic Senate Debate.
From the 22 News Broadcast Center here in Chicopee, the candidates seeking the Democratic nomination for the United States Senate make their case directly to you. And we welcome you to this Democratic Senate primary debate. I'm Patrick Berry. In just 8 weeks, Massachusetts voters will cast their ballots in one of the most closely watched primary contests in the country. The winner will help shape the national debate on issues facing the country. Today, we are joined by the two candidates vying for the Democratic nomination, incumbent U.S. Senator Ed Markey and Congressman Seth Moulton. We thank you both for joining us here in Western Massachusetts. Also joining us today is a panel of journalists representing news organizations from across Western Massachusetts. Liz Roman from New England Public Media, Dave Madsen from Western Mass News, Jim Kinney from The Republican, and Tony Fay from WWLP 22 News. Today's debate will follow a format designated to give both candidates equal time to answer questions and respond to one another. We will begin with opening statements. Each candidate will have 60 seconds. The candidates will then be asked questions by our panel. They will have 60 seconds for their answer, followed by 30 seconds for a rebuttal. The candidate will also be given 60 seconds for their closing statements. We will be reminding our candidates of those time limits using a traffic light system on their cameras. When their time is up, the lights will turn red. The order of opening statements, questions, and closing statements was determined by a drawing prior to this debate. And based on that drawing, Congressman Moulton will go first for opening statements. Congressman, you have 60 seconds.
Well, first of all, thank you all so much for having us here. Thank you to the panel, thank you to Senator Markey, and thank you for all of you watching here tonight. I thought I'd begin by just offering a little introduction to who I am for those of you who may not know me. Most importantly, I'm a proud father. I'm also the congressman from the North Shore and the Merrimack Valley, and an Iraq War veteran who's seen the consequences of failed leadership in Washington. Now, in truth, I didn't expect to be getting into politics. In fact, the first job I took after the Marine Corps was in Dallas, working on a high-speed rail project to try to bring carbon-free transportation to America. But I thought back to a tough day in the war when a young corporal in my platoon looked up at me and said, "You know, sir, you ought to run for Congress someday so that this stuff doesn't happen again." Now, he used a Marine term for stuff, but you know what I mean. And the point is that a lot of people feel like they don't have a voice. A lot of people in Massachusetts feel like they don't have a voice in our politics when they're struggling to afford basic needs. And we need a fighter. We need someone who's going to change the playbook, invest in a new generation of leaders, and start making Democrats win again. That's why I'm proud to be in this race and why I'm looking forward to the conversation tonight.
Senator Markey, you have 60 seconds for your opening statement.
Yeah, and thank you for hosting this important debate. I'm from Moulton. My father drove a truck for the Hood Mill Company. I'm the first in my family to go to college. So I understand the real problems that people are having at their kitchen tables right now in paying their bills. There's a real choice to be made in this race. I support Medicare for all. Congressman Moulton does not support Medicare for all. I supported the millionaire's tax in 2022 to raise now $5 billion to pay for education for kids in schools in Massachusetts and build transportation projects. Congressman Moulton opposed that. I opposed the defense budget just 7 months ago, $1 trillion given to Pete Hegseth and to Donald Trump, which he has used to conduct the wars in Iran and in Venezuela and God knows where else. My goal is to continue to fight for every family, to make sure every child has a very strong floor and an unlimited ceiling, and we're going to need the health care and education money in order to accomplish that goal.
Thank you, Senator Markey. And thank you both, gentlemen, for your opening statements. We will now move on to questions from our panel, and based on the drawing we had earlier, Senator Markey, you will answer first, and Liz Roman from New England Public Media will ask that question. Liz?
Senator, the topic of your age has come up heavily during this campaign season. It adds and criticism from your opponent. What do you say to those claiming your age could affect your ability to continue to serve the Commonwealth?
Senator, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. Well, this is the most energized I've ever been. Fighting Donald Trump every single day, fighting his agenda to undermine families all across our country. And I lead that fight on the Senate floor. But we need a real change of direction. And what Congressman Moulton has done is he has taken advantage of sweetheart deal opportunities which private equity companies have given to him to invest in companies like Aura and Divergent that appear before his Armed Services Committee. And he's been allowed to invest in those funds. And he has now reaped millions of dollars of opportunities from those investments. That's just plain wrong. It should be illegal, and he should divest those investments. We need the worst of Washington to be in a rearview mirror. We need to be looking ahead to the issues that every single family wants to have fought for, and that's what I do every single day on the floor of the United States Senate.
Thank you, Senator Markey. Congressman Moulton, you have 60 seconds for the same question.
Sure. Look, this is not about being critical of age. It's about the fact that we need new ideas and a new playbook, because the 50-year-old playbook is just not delivering for our country, for Massachusetts. We've got a second term of Donald Trump, and we need new plans. We need new leadership. But I will respond to the senator's attack on me, because, sadly, this is part of the old political playbook. It's what Donald Trump does. He attacks people for doing things that he's actually doing himself. I've been completely transparent about all my family's finances. Everything is disclosed, and people of Massachusetts can look at that. We followed every law, but I've gone beyond that because I co-sponsored 3 congressional stock trading bans. I've refused money from groups like AIPAC that I disagree with. And I'm the first congressional office in the House or the Senate to ban prediction markets. But sadly, Senator Markey has invested in 14 companies that appear before his committee, and he's refused to disclose his family's finances. So, Senator, I just ask you, will you disclose your family's finances as I have?
Thank you, Congressman Moulton. Senator Markey, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Yeah, what Congressman Moulton is talking about is my investment in mutual funds. Anyone watching this debate can invest in mutual funds. Those are public. That's all I've ever invested in. There's a big difference between that and what Congressman Moulton has been doing. He has been given opportunities by private equity to invest in companies that appear before his Armed Services Committee. No one watching this debate has been given that opportunity.
Thank you.
That is just plain
Thank you,
wrong.
Senator. Your time is up. Congressman Moulton, 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Senator, if you have nothing to hide, just disclose your family's finances. Just share your family's tax returns as I have. I think that's a fair question for the people of Massachusetts to ask. But what we really should be talking about is not this back and forth between us, but how we stop the MAGA Republicans from completely exploiting our system, because they are running roughshod all over the campaign finance laws. They're taking them out with this MAGA Supreme Court. That's what we should be fighting. That's what the people demand. It's Trump and the MAGA Republicans that should be the subject of our ire. And that's why I want to get to the Senate to put an end to the MAGA Republicans.
Thank you, Congressman Moulton. Our next question is from Dave Madsen of Western Mass News. Congressman Moulton, you will answer first. Dave?
Patrick, thanks. Well, both of you have positioned yourselves as legislators challenging the Washington establishment. Congressman Moulton, you've been in the House for 6 terms. Senator Markey, you've served in Congress since 1976. Given that, realistically, how can either one of you say you're not part of the establishment?
Congressman, you have 60 seconds.
Dave, I love this question, because the reality is I have run against the establishment from the very first time I took on a 9-term incumbent to run for Congress. I've brought in a whole new generation of leaders with my Serve America organization that's flipped 24 seats from red to blue and done that outside the Democratic Party. I've consistently fought against the establishment, even when it means standing up to my own party. And I'll tell you, I know that that's not always popular. But right now, more than 7 out of every 10 voters in Massachusetts think the Democratic leadership is failing. I mean, you look at Trump controlling a 2nd term in the White House, the House, and the Senate, and we just need new ideas. We can't keep using the same old playbook that's kept Trump in power, that's empowered the MAGA Republicans, who now control the White House, the Senate, and the Supreme Court. We need a new generation of leaders, and we need people willing to challenge the party establishment, which is why I've said from day one of this campaign that I will not vote for Senator Schumer, whereas the senator
Thank you, Congressman Moulton.
still supports
Your
it.
time is up. Senator Markey, you have 60 seconds for the same question.
Yeah, experience is not the opposite of change. Experience is what you use in order to create change. That is what I have done. That's why I introduced the Green New Deal, in order to ensure that we would have a generational response to climate change and to this energy crisis, which we continue to see from the Middle East. The answer is wind and solar, all electric vehicles, battery storage technologies. That's the revolution that the Green New Deal that I led unleashed. That's why I support Medicare for All, which Congressman Moulton does not, to ensure that everyone has access to the quality health care which they deserve. And that's why I believe that we have to tax the millionaires, which the congressman opposed here in Massachusetts when we had it on the ballot in 2022 to make sure the funding would be there for the educational opportunities for every child in Western Massachusetts and across our Commonwealth. That is change. That is using your experience in order to lead the changes for the future, which are absolutely necessary for the Commonwealth.
Thank you, Senator Markey. Congressman Moulton, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Sure, so let's just set the record straight. I stand with President Obama in supporting universal health care through Medicare for all who want it. I just don't want to take away health care plans from unions and others that have fought hard to get the health care that they want. I'm a proud co-sponsor of the new Green New Deal. But with all due respect, Senator, you promised voters last time that if you were elected, you would pass the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal has fewer co-sponsors today than it did back then. And when it came up for a vote, you voted present. That's just like saying you're here. That's not the kind of fight that we need
Thank you,
to
Congressman.
change our
Your time is up.
economy.
Senator Markey, 30 seconds.
That is just completely erroneous. The Green New Deal created the movement, that created the momentum, that created the moment when President Biden signed the IRA, which, in other words, was the greatest climate bill ever passed in the history of the world. And in that bill was my green bank, $20 billion, which experts said was going to unleash $150 billion in wind and solar, in green investments all across our society. That's why Trump promised the natural gas industry that if they gave him $1 billion, he would kill the Green New Deal.
Thank you, Senator.
I led on the Green New Deal, and
Senator,
it was in place when Donald Trump took over.
Thank you, Senator. Your time is up. Our next question is from the Republican Mass Live's Jim Kinney. Senator Markey, you will get the first response. You get 60 seconds.
Hospitals in Western Massachusetts predict pain this fall when changes to Medicare and Medicaid take force. Bay State alone says it stands to lose $146.7 million, or 4.8% of Bay State's bottom line. What can be done immediately to address this emerging need?
Senator Markey, 60 seconds.
Thank you. Well, next year, after we win the majority in the Senate, I will be the chair of the Health Committee, the Health Subcommittee in the United States Senate. The first order of business is going to be to restore all the Medicaid cuts, the $1 trillion that Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans cut from that budget. Restore the $300 billion from the Affordable Care Act, which was cut, that went to people out here in Western Massachusetts to ensure that there was solvency in the hospitals, in the entire medical system. And then we have to go beyond that. We have to double funding for community health centers. We have to double the funding for NIH research on Alzheimer's, on diabetes, on Parkinson's, on heart disease, all those diseases that run right through every single family. That has to be the goal. And in Western Massachusetts, I have stood up and I've fought. I've met with all the hospital leaders out here, and we are going to deliver beginning in January of next year, and I will be the chair of the Subcommittee on Health to deliver those results.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman Moulton, you have 60 seconds for the same question.
Senator, I love all those ideas, and I agree with them. But this doesn't happen by magic. You have to fight to win the majority. We can't do any of that. We can't make anyone chair on the Democratic side of a committee if we don't win the majority. And that's why I started Serve America, an organization to mentor, recruit, and support national service veterans running for office in some of the toughest seats that we need to flip. Amazing leaders like Johanna Hayes, Chrissy Houlihan, Mikey Sherrill, people who are winning back seats so that we can get the majority in the House and the Senate. In fact, the last time we were in this position in 2018 with Trump in the White House and Republicans in control of the House and the Senate, My Serve America organization accounted for half the seats that Democrats flipped in the entire country to take that the majority. That's what we need to do to actually accomplish these things. We need leaders who are not just focused on getting themselves reelected, but are fighting for the entire Democratic team all across the country, because we need to deliver for the people of Massachusetts, and the Republicans aren't going to do it.
Senator Markey, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Yeah, well, the Western Mass hospitals, they'll be in crisis if we don't restore that funding, if we don't expand that funding, if we don't ensure that all of that funding is there, and that we keep private equity out of the hospital system. That's what I fought to protect against when the Steward healthcare system was looted by private equity companies. We have to make sure on a permanent basis these hospitals in Western Massachusetts are not raided by private equity, looted, and emergency rooms
Thank you,
and
Senator. Your time is up.
ICU units are just shut down. That's what happened in Eastern Massachusetts.
Thank you, Senator. Your time is up.
Protect against it in Western
Congressman Moulton, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Again, Senator, I agree, but what are you going to do to actually fight to win these seats back? What have you done to flip seats from red to blue? This is what matters right now so that we can defeat the MAGA Republicans, so that we can stop these Trump cuts. Because the reality is that the old playbook is not working. We're in the minority in the House and the Senate. Trump controls the White House. So if you want universal health care, as I have said, should be a human right. In fact, I've said that we should just plant our flag in the ground and make healthcare, housing, and education human rights. Our 3 for 30 in response to Republicans' Project 2025.
Thank you,
We
Congressman.
need majorities to do that.
Our next question is from Tony Fay of WWLP 22 News. Congressman Moulton, you will get to answer this question first. Tony?
Thank you, Patrick. In the aftermath of the 2024 presidential election, Congressman Moulton, you told the New York Times that Democrats, quote, spent too much time trying not to offend anyone, and went on to say you wouldn't want your daughters, quote, getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete. But last week, you condemned the Supreme Court ruling allowing states to ban transgender athletes. Congressman, what is your position on trans athletes in school sports, and do you stand by what you said in the 2024 New York Times interview?
Congressman, you have 60 seconds.
First of all, let me be clear. To anyone out there listening tonight, anyone in the LGBTQ community or anyone else, I stand with you because I've always stood with you. And I have seen the pain that you are going through because of this hateful Trump administration. I've seen it. I've heard it because I've held 50 town halls. Well, actually, my 50th is tonight in Chicopee, Massachusetts. My opponent has held one. This is a crisis. And I'm very proud of the fact that I have a 100% voting record from Human Rights Campaign. I have your back because I've always had your backs, and I will have them in the future. But you know who has a 0% rating from Human Rights Campaign? Our Secretary of State, Senator Marco Rubio, who Senator Markey voted to send to the State Department. How can you say that you support LGBTQ rights? How can you say that you support transgender people when you sent Marco Rubio to the State Department, Senator?
Thank you, Congressman. Senator Markey, you have 60 seconds to respond.
The Human Rights Campaign has endorsed me in this race. The LGBTQ community has endorsed me in this race. The Christopher Street Project that defends transgender kids has endorsed me in this race because there's a clear difference between my record and Congressman Moulton's. You are right. That's a very good question. Because after the 2024 election, Congressman Moulton decided that he was going to throw trans kids under the bus, the political bus, and blame them for the loss of the 2024 election. Those kids are vulnerable. Those kids need love. Those kids don't need to be scapegoated and blamed for what was wrong with the Democratic Party. And that's why I've introduced the Trans Bill of Rights to enshrine in law those protections for trans kids that are enjoyed by every other American and every other kid, because it is just wrong to take out these kids and to make them live in fear. And that, unfortunately, is part of what Congressman Moulton's comments led to.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman Moulton, you have 30-second rebuttal.
That is what Secretary Marco Rubio is doing every single day, attacking these kids. And you're right, they need love and they need support, but they also need action. And if we're not willing to have these conversations, which is what I said we need to be able to have these conversations as Democrats, sometimes tough conversations, then that's the only way we're going to be able to fight forward. Because so far, the only thing that's happened in this Congress is the Republicans have put forward hateful legislation. And I've been proud to vote against every one of those bills. But where's our fight, Democrats? Where are we taking action for transgender kids, protecting their health care, protecting...
Thank you, Congressman. Your time is up.
That's what we need to do.
Senator Markey, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
And unfortunately, the Supreme Court of the United States of America just last week took the same position that Congressman Moulton took last year. They have now said that states across the country, and 29 have these laws, can discriminate against transgender kids. They can just scapegoat them. Massachusetts, we have laws to protect them. That's good. But I'm the leader with my transgender Bill of Rights to lead the movement so that those protections are made possible all across the country. The Supreme Court of the United States took the same position as Congressman Moulton.
Thank you, Senator. We go back now to Liz Roman from New England Public Media for our next question. That comes right back to you, Senator Markey.
Thanks, Patrick. Just a few weeks ago, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Trump administration's plan to end temporary protected status, known as TPS, particularly for Haitian and Syrian immigrants. Massachusetts has the third largest population of Haitian immigrants in the country. Senator, you've supported legislation to extend residency, but what do you believe is the correct path to legal permanent residency for immigrants under this status?
Thank you so much. So I'm partnering with Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. She has the legislation in the United States House of Representatives to be able to guarantee that those Haitian 45,000 people are not sent back to Haiti. If it's too dangerous for Americans to be able to go to Haiti, it's going to be too dangerous to send back these Haitians who live in fear right now because of the Supreme Court decision. I am the leader in the Senate, and with Senator Lisa Blunt Rochester, we're bringing that up to a vote this month on the floor of the United States Senate to partner with Ayanna Pressley. We need to put this issue front and center, and if for no other reason, not only humanitarian, but these Haitian workers are in our hospitals. They're in our nursing homes. They're helping people at home with their child care right now. It will be an economic disaster. It'll be a healthcare disaster for our state if these Haitians are forced to go back to a country which is too dangerous for Americans to actually visit.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman Moulton, you have 60 seconds for the same question.
This is a disgusting travesty that we are talking about sending Haitians not only back, but some kids who've grown up in America have never even been to Haiti when the country is unsafe to travel for Americans. And the reality is that this is the result of a MAGA-controlled Supreme Court. Because establishment Democrats in the United States Senate just let that happen. Let Mitch McConnell and others railroad in people like Brett Kavanaugh who have no business serving on the Supreme Court. I've been to Haiti. I've been on the ground. I went there after the earthquake. I've seen the conditions there. There's absolutely no reason why TPS should not be extended. And that's why I've introduced the TPS Relief Act. They would simply go to the Supreme Court and solve the problem, because the Supreme Court said, oh, we can't rule on this. Well, this says you have to. You have to rule on it. You have to make a decision here and provide a check on the executive. But we also have to fight again to win the Senate, so we don't get railroaded by these MAGA Republicans. We've got to have a fight. And the people,
thank you,
counting on TPS, demand it.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator Markey, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Absolutely. We need to fight for these people, but we need a progressive Senate. We need a Senate that's going to stand up for Medicare for all, stand up to tax billionaires, stand up against the defense budget of Donald Trump just 7 months ago. We need a progressive Senate. That's what I'm fighting for, and that's what this country needs. And we don't need people like Congressman Moulton, who actually invest in private equity deals and companies that appear before his committee. We just have to end the worst of the old Washington, turn the page, and look forward to a future which is brighter for every American.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman, you have 30 seconds.
Again, Senator, just be transparent about your family's finances as I have. But you know what we really need? We need a senator who is not going to endorse Trump nominees. Senator Markey has supported 61 Trump nominees, including people like Judge Friedrich, who is enabling and empowering ICE. I think the people of Massachusetts deserve to know. Did you just vote for him, Senator, because Senator Schumer told you to? Why did you support 61 Trump nominees? Senator Warren voted against it.
Congressman, your time is up. Thank you very much. We are going to our next question, which comes from Dave Madsen. Congressman Moulton, you will be the first to answer. Dave?
All right, Patrick, thanks. Well, congressional stalemates over fiscal year 2027 spending bills are raising concerns about the possibility of another government shutdown. Economists in Massachusetts estimate that national shutdowns have cost the state millions per week in economic activity, severely impacting the local safety net programs and public services in the western part of the state. What, as a senator, can you or will you do to make sure this another shutdown doesn't happen?
Congressman, you have 60 seconds.
Well, it's a good question, because it's obvious that we cannot trust Republicans to run this government. I mean, it has been an utter disaster under them. They're corrupt. They enable the president. They basically have the Congress just working for the president of the United States. And so the most important thing that we can do is not just focus on getting reelected. It's focusing on winning majorities across the country. And that's why I come back to what I've been doing with Serve America, that has elected so many next generation leaders who are taking it to the Washington establishment, who are going up against and fighting Trump and the MAGA Republicans. It's why I'm not afraid to go on Fox News. It's why I'm not afraid to take on these MAGA Republicans and show Americans that we have a better plan, that we can do better. But it takes a fighter to do that. It takes a new playbook, because this just isn't working, folks. The status quo establishment is not getting it done.
Thank you very much. Senator Markey, you have 60 seconds for the same question.
Yeah, it's not the fear of God that drives these MAGA Republicans, these even mainstream Republicans in the Senate. It's the fear of voters. And the closer we get to this election, is the more likely some of these Republicans are going to start to realize that they're the ones who are going to pay the price if this government shuts down. That it'll be the healthcare programs, the education programs, the environmental programs that are affecting ordinary families. Because there's a wave coming. There's a blue wave coming in the House and in the Senate. And that wave is related to these kitchen table issues that are going to be fundamentally impacted. So I'll be on the floor of the United States Senate, and I will be fighting every single day in order to put together a package that can pass. And if not, then we're going to make the Republican Party accountable this fall. And next year, we'll come back and we will restore every one of those programs, and we will work to expand them. And whether it's education or healthcare or transportation, I will be on the key committees in a senior position in order to make sure that funding comes out here to Western Massachusetts.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman Moulton, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Senator, you're the junior senator from Massachusetts, and I have no doubt that you'll be on the Senate floor. And I respect the fact that you've been serving in Washington for 50 years, and that experience counts for something. But the reality is that just standing on the Senate floor is not getting it done. So you know what I'm going to be doing? I'm going to be traveling all over this country to help flip seats, to make sure that we do actually win majorities in the House, in the Senate. That's what I've done for years, and it's what I'll continue doing in the United States Senate. It's not enough to just sit back and hope a blue wave comes. We need to make it happen.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Yeah, I'm helping to win the Senate seat in North Carolina, and in Ohio with Sherrod Brown, and in Alaska with Mary Peltola, and in Texas with James Tallarico. I'm working to get that majority. We need 4 seats. We're going to win it. And I'm working to accomplish that goal, because I know that all of our power is going to be tied to that majority. And I'm convinced that the more that we fight on these issues that are at the heart of what is concerning people across this country, the affordability issues especially, for food, for health care, for gasoline prices, all the way up and down the line, is the more likely we're going to have that landslide victory.
Your time is up, and unfortunately we have reached the midpoint time in today's debate, and we are going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere, because there is plenty more to come. The candidates will answer questions on the issues and policies that matter most to voters here in Western Massachusetts. From the 22 News Broadcast Center, you're watching the Democratic Senate primary debate.
From your local election headquarters, this is the Massachusetts Democratic Senate Debate.
Welcome back to the Democratic Senate primary debate featuring incumbent U.S. Senator Ed Markey and Congressman Seth Moulton. I'm your moderator, Patrick Barry. This is the first debate of these two candidates. First primary. We're jumping right back in now to the questions that matter most to our residents here in Western Massachusetts. Jim Kinney from the Republican in Mass Live, the question is yours.
West-East Rail, East-West Rail, the promise of better rail service between Springfield and Boston has been slow pulling out of the station. How can we speed up this connection with an economic driver?
Senator Markey, we'll start with you. You have 60 seconds.
Thank you. Well, with Congressman Richie Neal, we were able to secure $157 million for West-East Rail because it is absolutely essential that we connect the Western Mass economy to the rest of the economy of Massachusetts. It's been long overdue, and that's why I worked so hard on the infrastructure bill of 2022, why we then worked so hard to get that funding. It is absolutely indispensable that that funding be made available, and it is there, and we are working to ensure that it gets built out in cooperation with Governor Healy as quickly as possible. But in addition, we also needed the funding for Springfield for this asthma crisis which they had. We also needed to secure the funding to clean up the Housatonic. We also needed the funding in North Adams for the Hoosic. And I worked on every one of those projects to make sure the funding would be there for every one of the issues out here in Western Massachusetts, to work with the mayors, to work with the elected officials, to ensure that the funding is there, not just for West-East Rail, but for all of these critical projects that are central to the long-term economic development of this region.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman Moulton, you have 60 seconds for the same question.
Senator, with all due respect, no one's going to ride your train because it's too slow. And you've had 50 years in Washington to get this done, and it's not done. And meanwhile, the rest of the world is passing us by. I'm the author of the American High-Speed Rail Act. If we had high-speed rail between Springfield and Boston, you would get from downtown to downtown in 40 minutes. Imagine what that would do for job opportunities. Imagine what that would do to knit our state together. And it's not a pie-in-the-sky idea. It's what the rest of the world is doing. Morocco built a high-speed rail line just a slight bit longer than Springfield to Boston. They got it done in 5 or 10 years. I think we can beat that. But it's a great example of how the old playbook, the establishment, is just not getting it done. Senator, you've had 50 years. What are we going to do differently in the next 6 to get this done? That's why I think we need high-speed rail. That's why I think Americans in Massachusetts should be traveling the same speed as the rest of the world. It would be transformative for the state, and I'm going to continue fighting to get it done.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator, you have 30 seconds for a response.
Yeah, well, Congressman Neal and I, we got the funding. It's now on its way. It's on track to be built. And it's long, long overdue. It's about time that we have this connection. And by the way, the same thing is true for other regions of the state. I was able to secure $1.7 trillion for the Sagamore Bridge to have it be replaced. The Sagamore will sag no more. But I did the same thing for project after project around the Commonwealth. It's not just Western Mass that I have fought for that infrastructure money, but it is community after community when they requested the funding, whether it's dredging Plymouth Harbor or Salem Harbor or Boston Harbor. I've been able to get that infrastructure money, and Western Massachusetts as well is going to receive the money for West-East Rail.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman, you have 30 seconds.
Senator Markey, the numbers matter here. $152 million will pay for about 10 miles of rail. That's not enough to get to Boston. Now, I've delivered $2 billion just to the city of Lynn. Just to the city of Lynn. Imagine what $2 billion would do for this project in comparison to $152 million. Imagine what $2 billion would do for so many cities out here in Western Massachusetts that have been left behind by the politicians in Washington and in Boston. I hear this all the time when I do my 50 town halls across the state. A lot of people don't show up. Well, I'm showing up. And I'm going to show up when it matters to deliver high-speed rail to Massachusetts.
Thank you, Congressman. Our next question comes from Tony Fay. Congressman Moulton, you will be the first to answer.
Congressman Moulton, Democratic Socialist candidates are on the rise in the Democratic Party, winning House primaries in New York and Colorado in recent weeks. Political analysts are somewhat divided over whether this trend will help or hurt the Democratic Party. Are you encouraged by the success of these candidates, and do you think that the Democratic Party should be taking a more leftward turn?
You have 60 seconds.
You know, the pundits and frankly the MAGA Republicans always try to divide Democrats by turning this into an ideological debate. But where you may see an ideological debate, I see establishment versus change. I see new energy from next generation candidates. Because one thing that unites all of the primary wins, the more conservative and the more liberal, is that they are next generation candidates willing to challenge the status quo. We need a united Democratic Party with a lot of different perspectives to take on Trump and the MAGA Republicans. So I welcome all the next generation candidates who are stepping up and challenging the establishment with due respect to the establishment. Okay? I respect the fact that the senator has served in Washington for 50 years. I've said that often in this campaign. But we've just got to realize that when Trump controls the White House, the House, and the Senate, the establishment playbook is just not getting it done. We need new leaders, we need new ideas, and we need to win as Democrats.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator Markey, you have 60 seconds for the same question.
Yeah, it's not your age, it's the age of your ideas that are important. And in this race, I'm the youngest guy. These activists, these young people across the country, they want change. They want fundamental change. They want Medicare for all because they're living in a health care crisis. Congressman Moulton opposes that. They want to ensure that we don't give slush funds to Donald Trump, $1 trillion defense budget just 7 months ago to invade Iran, which has now led to a gasoline and home heating oil, natural gas crisis in Massachusetts and across our country. They want a housing bill that solves their problems. Elizabeth Warren put it together. I partnered with her on that bill. Congressman Moulton was up here campaigning rather than being on the floor of the United States House of Representatives to vote for that housing bill. Those young people, they want fare free transit. We have it now in parts of Boston, up in Merrimack Valley, out in Worcester. That is something that those young people are standing up and they are fighting for.
Thank
and with
you,
Ayanna
Senator.
Pressley, I introduced the bill on fare-free transit, and that's the progressive vision we need for the future.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman Moulton, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Senator, again, just to set the record straight, I voted for the housing bill when it came up in May. In your last two campaigns, in the last 3 months of both of your two campaigns, you missed 8 out of 10 votes. 8 out of 10 votes campaigning. So let's just be honest about the facts here. And you keep coming back to Medicare for all, but this is what the Trump MAGA Republicans want us to do. You and I both agree that everybody deserves health care. I've said it should be a human right. I bet you agree with that too. I stand with President Obama and say Medicare for all who want it. You want Medicare for all, forcing people onto one plan.
Congressman,
we
your
can
time
have
is
that
up.
debate, but what we should be focused on is taking on the Republicans who want to take health care away.
Congressman, your time is up. Senator Markey, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I was an original sponsor with Bernie Sanders for Medicare for all. You do not support that. Okay, I was on the floor of the Senate on Elizabeth Warren's bill on housing. Congressman Moulton missed that vote while he was campaigning up here. The job is to be on the floor of the United States House of Representatives if there's a housing bill which is up. That's the job for us. We have to deliver. We have to be there. We have to make sure Washington works for every family in the Commonwealth. That is what I have done throughout the entirety of my career.
Thank you very much, Senator. Liz Roman from New England Public Media has our next question. Senator Markey, this one will come right back to you. You will have 60 seconds.
Senator. According to the recent census information, there are 1 million Latinos living in the Commonwealth. In Western Mass, Holyoke has a population that's more than 50% Latino, and in Springfield, they're coming in close at 46%. A recent poll shows that beyond immigration reform, many Latino voters are concerned about transportation, rent control, and support for small businesses. Senator Markey, what kind of outreach have you done in the Latino community in your most recent term to address these concerns?
No, thank you. So out here in Springfield, I've been endorsed by all of the elected state senators and state representatives who are Latino. They're standing with me, including Senator Gomez. This is an incredible fight that we're in right now, a fight for all of those people in the minority community that are right now feeling that they are under attack, under assault every single day. That is our challenge. After the Supreme Court made their decision on Haiti, it was very clear that they were then going to move on to Salvadorans, onto Hondurans, onto the Latino community at large. This community is a central part of our economy. They are our friends. They are our neighbors. When Donald Trump says he wants to make America hate again, he really make America great again, he really wants to make America hate again. And the Latino community is right in their crosshairs. So I work very hard to make sure that business opportunities are available for the minority community. I've introduced my Spark Act that will put hundreds of millions of dollars available for the minority business community.
Thank
and
you, Senator.
it is a
Your time
central
is up.
part of the long-term economic growth plan we need.
Congressman Moulton, you have 60 seconds for the same question.
Well, Senator, we know that all the elected establishment politicians have endorsed you. The question is that working? Is life getting more affordable in Massachusetts? Or in reality, has 1 out of 3 residents of Massachusetts thought about leaving just in the last year? Because they can't afford housing. They can't afford energy prices. Electricity bills are out of control. And that's why I've introduced the most aggressive, progressive affordability agenda of any elected official, because it plants the flag in the ground and says that housing, healthcare, and education, they should just be human rights, not debatable. That should be Democrats 3 for 30 in response to Project 2025 from the Republicans. And you get there by doing things like banning private equity from buying up neighborhoods and raising prices. You get there by having universal health care, something we both agree on, although I made a commitment to continue getting my health care at the VA. A lot of veterans want that to continue, which may not happen under the senator's plan. And education, we have lines out the doors of vocational schools in Massachusetts, but we're not delivering. We need to make more seats.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator Markey, 30 seconds.
Yeah, the Latino community is really feeling the brunt of this economy that Trump has. Unemployment is up, inflation is hitting them hard, they're feeling discrimination. It's affecting small businesses along Main Street who are afraid that there could be an ICE raid. Customers are staying away who are Latino because they're afraid that they could be abducted by ICE. We're seeing a dramatically negative impact on the business opportunities for the Latino community in our country. It's why I've called for the abolition of ICE. It's why I've called for better civil liberties protections for the Latino community, because every single day they are feeling the brunt of this Trump Make America Hate Again agenda.
Congressman, you have 30 seconds.
No, and Senator, I'm glad that you've come around to those positions, because I was the first in this race to call for the abolition of ICE, and I've also said they need to be prosecuted. They need to be prosecuted for breaking the law. We're not going to let Kristi Noem ride off into the sunset with Corey Lewandowski. She needs to be prosecuted. They need to be held accountable. And you know what I also hear from people? They're getting hurt every single day by these judges that vote in favor of ICE, including one senator that you have voted to send to the courtships that you've supported because they're Trump nominees. That's hurting people every single day in this community.
Congressman, your time is up. Thank you very much. Our next question comes from Dave Madsen, and it will come right back to you, Congressman Moulton.
Congressman, you and the senator have both touched on the affordability crisis. Families across the Pioneer Valley and in the Berkshires are grappling with spikes in housing and grocery and energy costs. What can or should be done to rein in the rising utilities, but also maintain efficiency without sacrificing emission goals?
You have 60 seconds.
Well, this is another great example of where the status quo has just not gotten it done. I mean, this is not a new problem in Massachusetts. We've been talking about the cost of housing. We've been talking about the rising cost of electricity for years. What's the holdup? Like, why is it taking so long to get this done? It's why we need new ideas. It's why we need to fight to get majorities back in the House and the Senate so we can actually overturn these Trump cuts. It's why we need to bring science to our climate policy, that we expand electricity production and we prevent data centers from stealing it from Americans who see their electricity prices skyrocket. It's also why I've just been out here on the ground. This is my 6th trip to Western Massachusetts. I'm holding my 50th town hall across the state. I hear these concerns every single day because I show up for voters. And with all due respect to the senator, you've held 1 town hall, not 50. People need a senator who shows up.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator Markey, yes, you have 60 seconds for the same question.
I show up. There's a reason why the mayor of Springfield has endorsed me, and the mayor of East Hampton, and Northampton, and Pittsfield, and North Adams, and Holyoke, and Chicopee. They're endorsing me because I show up. In fact, in Congressman Moulton's own district, his largest city, Lynn, The mayor of Lynn is endorsing me. The mayor of Salem is endorsing me in his congressional district because they know that when they have a call to make and they want something done, that if they call me, I will get it done for them. That is a big difference between the two of us. And on this crisis, you're right. But Congressman Moulton, he voted for the $1 trillion Trump defense budget just in December. And that money was then used for the war in Iran. That has led to such a dramatic spike in gasoline prices, diesel prices, electricity prices, that is rippling right through the economy and every single good that people buy, food, and every other product. So that is the difference between us. It's very clear that that budget should not have passed, and it is a slush fund that Trump has used.
Thank
but
you,
it's
Senator.
rippling right back here onto the streets
Senator,
of
your time is
Western
up.
Massachusetts.
Congressman Moulton, you have 30 seconds.
Senator, with all due respect, you may not remember this, but I voted against that bill. I voted against it, and I proposed an amendment for the largest cut to that bill in history. So that's just not true, and we ought to tell voters the truth. We also all know that all these endorsements you racked up before I even got in the race. So, I mean, it's not about the establishment politician endorsements. It's about what is your vision for the future. And one of the fundamental problems we have is that housing is tied to transportation. And if we had better transportation to literally make it faster than driving to get around the state, then you could live in Springfield and work in Boston, or live in Boston and work in Springfield. That's the kind of transformative change
your time is up.
need.
Senator Markey, 30 seconds.
Thank you. Well, just to set the record straight, the mayor of Salem, where he lives, endorsed me after he got in the race. The mayor of Lynn, his largest city, endorsed me after he got in the race, when there was a clear choice, not before. And so, to the extent to which we've got an opportunity here to talk about, again, this electricity crisis, this energy crisis out here in Western Massachusetts, that's why I introduced the Green New Deal. That's why we need this wind and solar and all-electric future that guarantees that it's affordable, it's guaranteed, and not controlled by the oil, gas, and coal industry.
Thank you, Senator. Our next question comes from Jim Kinney, and it's coming right back to you, Senator.
Trump has low approval ratings, but the Democratic Party fares about the same in national polls. Why, and how can you address this from the U.S. Senate?
You have 60 seconds, sir.
Well, I think the challenge for the Democratic Party is to stand up to the moment, to be able to say that we have a different vision for the future. That is what I am running on. That is what Medicare for All is all about, universal, affordable health care. And by the way, Congressman Moulton is in a single-payer system at the VA. Every American deserves to be in that single-payer system. The same thing is true for an energy future. We have to be more bold. We have to have the vision of what that clean energy, low-cost future looks like. I've been the leader in the Senate on that issue, on unleashing this tremendous potential which domestically produced electricity from renewables presents for an opportunity for us. And as well, you just have to have the courage to tax millionaires and billionaires to get the funding back in order to provide the health care, to be able to provide the education and the housing for everyone in our society. That is the clear difference in this race between Congressman Moulton and I. I have a clear vision for the fights that we have to fight in order to make sure we're protecting every family who is watching this debate.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman Moulton, 60 seconds for the same question.
Senator, with all due respect, you've been in Washington for 50 years. You have a long list of bills that you've co-sponsored that haven't got passed into law. And we just need to try a different approach. I mean, look, I made a commitment to go to the VA because my fellow veterans were going there and not getting the care that they deserve. They deserve the best health care in the world, and the VA isn't delivering. That's why I made a commitment to go to the VA. That's why I've repeatedly passed legislation to improve care at the VA, and that's why I stand with President Obama and saying we should have Medicare for all who want it. You want Medicare? Absolutely. You should be able to get it. But you should also be able to keep a health care plan you prefer if that's what you want. But the point is that the establishment plans have just not gotten it done. And if you honestly think that we should just rehash the same things that we've been trying again and again for the last 50 years, then vote for the senator. But if you think we need a new approach, if you think we need new leaders, if you think we need people who are willing to fight to get this done, well, that's why I'm running for Senate.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator Markey, you have 30 seconds for a response.
Yeah, thank you. No, I've delivered. The funding for the tax breaks for wind and solar, that was the funding I fought for and put into the 2022 bill. The funding for offshore wind, that's the funding that I fought for and put in that bill so we could revolutionize electrical generation here in the state of Massachusetts. The funding for environmental justice for communities like Springfield, the asthma capital of the world. That was funding that I fought for successfully. And I also fought, by the way, for a children and teenage mental health privacy bill of rights to protect them against the ravages of social media that are causing a mental health crisis amongst young people in our country.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman, you have 30 seconds.
Senator, you've often talked about your telecommunications bill of 1996. That was a deregulation bill. You know, it empowered a lot of billionaires who were funding your super PAC. And yet the first union to endorse me was the telecom workers. We need to stand up for workers, not for billionaires. We need to empower the people of Massachusetts. That's why I passed 988, the National Mental Health Hotline, that's saving thousands of lives. In fact, teen suicide is down 11% just because of that bill.
Thank you very much, Congressman. And that completes our questions from our panel. We certainly want to thank Liz Roman, Dave Madsen, Jim Kinney, and Tony Fay, and their respective organizations for participating in today's debate. But we are not done yet. Gentlemen, the softball questions are behind us. Now comes the tough part. And I will start with you, Senator Markey. What's your favorite restaurant here in Western Massachusetts?
You know, my favorite restaurant is the Red Rose, and there's nothing like the chicken française with the spaghetti on the side. It's just absolutely, actually, I will tell you the truth, it's my favorite food in all of Massachusetts. I just love it there at the Red Rose, but that chicken française just absolutely hits the spot every time I get it. My mouth starts to water as I'm heading into the restaurant.
Fantastic. Congressman Moulton, different question coming to you. This is a tough one for you,
Oh, wait,
sir.
I had a great answer for that.
Quickly.
White Lion Brewing and Sweet Boutique, which has amazing cookies about ice that we can't talk about right here, but they're great.
All right, now the harder question for you. What's your favorite Massachusetts sports team?
Oh, now this is an invitation to get in very big trouble with the voters. So, look, Massachusetts has the best sports in the country because we have the best fans in the best spirit. So I'm not going to pick a favorite between the Sox and the Patriots or anything like that. I'm a big Massachusetts sports fan. I know the senator is too. We got to do a little better, though.
Absolutely.
We got to do a little better.
Absolutely. Senator Markey, this next question is for
Can I
you.
answer that? Come on. I'm here in Springfield, the home of the Basketball Hall of Fame. So when you're in Springfield, basketball is the sport. And by the way, I'm a frustrated high school basketball player.
There you
and
go.
I'll just
There
say
you
this,
go.
and I think I speak for many people, I wish we had not traded Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Senator Markey,
we can agree on that.
Senator Markey,
right.
this question is for you. On your mobile device, Senator Markey, what is your most used app that's on your mobile device?
I would have to say, and it can happen anywhere, it's just MLB.com. Okay? It's just to get updates on Red Sox scores all summer long, late into the night, just to know where we are in this pennant race that we're ultimately going to wind up in the playoffs.
Fantastic. Congressman Moulton, anywhere, it doesn't matter here in Massachusetts, anywhere, what's your favorite place to vacation?
My favorite place to vacation?
Absolutely.
I mean, to be honest, I like to stay at home. I like to be in Massachusetts in the summer. There's a reason why presidents vacation from all over the country in Massachusetts in the summer. There's simply no place to be beat. I'm not having much of a summer vacation this summer, but it's still an honor to be here. And to travel all across the state, doing 50 town halls, it's been amazing to experience the Senate this summer with so many people from different parts of the Commonwealth.
Well, I want to thank you both for
And
some...
can I just say, for me, this summer is, because of this race, a staycation for me.
There you go.
But
we all have them.
every summer day, my mother would take my brothers and I down to Revere Beach.
Thank you.
And just 2 days ago, with my wife, we just went back down to Revere Beach, the first public beach in the United States, but it's one that's accessible to every family, regardless of income, not these exclusive
We are
resorts.
low on time. Thank you both so very much. And that completes our question portion of today's debate. We will now move on to our closing statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute, and the order was decided in a drawing prior to this debate. Senator Markey, you get to go first. You have 60 seconds.
Yeah. There was a clear choice in this race. I support Medicare for all. Congressman Moulton does not. I support taxing millionaires to provide for the education, for the transportation system in our Commonwealth. Congressman Moulton does not. Congressman Moulton believes it's okay to invest in private equity deals, sweetheart deals of companies that appear before his Armed Services Committee. I think it's wrong. I think it should be illegal. I think he should divest. I stand here to tell you that I'm going to fight for every family out there. Every family that deserves to know that there are going to be unlimited opportunities for your families, for your children. I'm the beneficiary of all of those opportunities that were given to me as the son of a truck driver. And I want to make sure that every kid on every porch across our country is able to maximize their God-given abilities so that we have a better, fairer, healthier set of opportunities that are given to every single child in the Commonwealth. That is my promise to you. I ask for your vote this September.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman Moulton, you have 60 seconds for closing statements.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you so much for doing this and thank the Senator, and I respect your long years of service. I mean, just to be clear, I support universal health care. I have a wealth tax is fundamental to my affordability agenda, which I encourage you to check out, Senator. I think it'll make a big difference. And I do think that you should be as transparent with your finances as I have. But there's a very different approach here that we've heard tonight. You know, we've heard a lot of things about the past, about things that have been happening in the past, or things that the Senator has tried to do. And the reality is that he deserves credit for that. I appreciate that. But it just hasn't worked. It hasn't gotten it done, and people are hurting today. We are in a crisis in America with Trump and the MAGA Republicans, and that's why we need a new generation of leaders who is willing to take on the establishment, change the status quo, and make sure that Democrats win again so that we can serve all of you, as I would be so proud to do as your next senator. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to both of you. That concludes our debate. And again, I want to thank both Senator Ed Markey and Congressman Seth Moulton for taking the time to debate here in Western Massachusetts. We hope today's debate will help you, the voters at home, make an informed decision at the polls here in Massachusetts. The primary is September 1st. From all of us here at 22 News, thank you for watching.